All right, I got an athlete in the house. Welcome back to a Rest Eat Move podcast. We're back. Chris is in the hot seat. Dad's in the hot seat, and we're going to talk about athletes today and the aging athlete. As always, any questions? Info at ontargetliving.com. We'd love to hear from you. We do hear from you. It means a lot. Today's topic around the aging athlete spans many generations, many different ages, could be different seasons. I'm 37 years old. You're going to be 66 years old. You could be 25 years old. Could be just getting into college. We're all aging as athletes. But before I go into the X's and O's of how to age as an athlete, help me kind of think about athlete in your mind. What's an athlete in your mind?
Well, I think when I ever hear the word athlete, I always think about performance or a higher level. So somebody could be relatively fit, but they might not be an athletic. So athletic to me is now I'm getting into play. So to me, when I think of athlete, I think of some type of play. Or athleticism, where people do a combine and they can run fast and jump high. But sometimes people they have all these skills, but they're not really a great in their sport or the game they're playing. So there's a lot to that. We talk a lot about, the mental side of it, like making the right decision at the right time. So to me, you might have all the physical attributes, but sometimes you don't have the combination. So that's kind of when I think about athletes, whatever, because I love to play. And I remember my grandmother saying, at some point in time, this kid is going to do something that has to do with the ball because he likes to play.
So the connection between athlete and play is pretty intertwined for you. You can be athletic, you can be naturally gifted or maybe even skilled, but you have to have some level of play in your mind for athlete, the aging athlete. So would you say like a sport like CrossFit where maybe some of those individuals are super fit, can move their body in different ways? Is that an athlete?
Oh, sure. Yeah, they're skilled in that game. But again, to
Because
me,
it is a game at that point.
it's a game.
It's
Yeah,
play
they're
there.
these are athletes. They can run fast. They can jump. They're super strong. All that kind of stuff. So I would consider that. But sometimes, like, we had Battle of the Titans way back in the day. So what we wanted to do is combine the physical piece, the strength, the speed, all that kind of stuff, but also with games, because sometimes these people, maybe like in CrossFit, I'm not going to try to, because these are really amazing athletes, but maybe they're not really that coordinated with the ball or
A stick, a
stick
racket.
yeah. So that's where sometimes when I really look at athletes, they can really cross over. They're very skilled at whether it's ping pong or downhill skiing or playing tennis, and maybe they can do pull-ups. So it's kind of a little bit of everything.
So plays an important deal. Athlete can mean several different things in this context here. I think when we talk about the aging athlete, it's almost like the aging performer. What you'll hear us talk about is the reason why we're both so passionate about athletics is the play component. It is one of our abilities. Now, there's different ways to play. It doesn't have to always be sport
Correct.
or athletics.
Mm-hmm.
You can
play with grandkids, do all sorts of stuff.
yeah, you can just run in the yard or play games, tag. You could play board games, more of a mental play. When I think of aging as an athlete, it's my ability to have that competition, to have that performance, to kind of keep me engaged in something. And that's what we're talking about today. And so if you're not necessarily an athlete, kind of pick up on some of the things that you can do to continue to perform, whether it's to stay fit or to stay flexible or mobile, whatever the category is. So I wanted to get that out of the way. So you're 66. Have you ever thought of your aging as an athlete? Like, how are you going to age as an athlete, or how are you going to continue to move the way you want to move or compete the way you want to compete?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And so if you go back in time, like I ruptured my patella tendon back in 2000 playing basketball with you. And so when I did that, kind of my basketball days were over.
We were winning, by the way.
Yeah. and I loved playing basketball, but I thought to myself, okay, you know, it was a really devastating injury, but I was always looking for something. And I think part of aging athlete is you have that self-awareness. Not as strong, can't run as fast, can't jump as high, don't hit the golf ball as far. You know, you have the self-awareness, but at the same time, I still have this mentality that I probably think I'm a lot better than I am. And a big part of that is I constantly want to try to get better. I like to learn. And so even though I might not have the same physical skills that I used to, I can't run as fast and so forth, but I still think I can do certain things, and that kind of drives me. And it's the same thing when I train people. I always want to find out what really drives them. Like I was talking to a guy the other day, he wants to get back playing golf again. His back's a mess and this and that. So he's driven to want to get back because he used to be a good golfer, or downhill skiing, or whatever it might be. So that to me is always my driver. Like one of my drivers of wanting to stay in shape and take care of my body is so I can do things. I can cut wood, I can haul stuff up and down, you know, from the lake. But I also can play.
Your function isn't going to decrease.
Yeah, so I still want to play. I still want to play at a high level. I want to get better. I have the self-awareness. It's easier to get injured, and so I do. Again, we can talk about the tactics and strategies. So I surround myself with some professionals, but I'm much more aware of my limitations than I was when I was probably 30 to 40. I didn't think I had any limitations. So, but now I'm much more aware of those, and I think that's the self-awareness that I think everybody has. And, I remember, Jim Lohr came out with a corporate athlete, many years ago, and I thought that was a great model because in corporations, he was talking about energy management, all the stuff that we discuss, but it really hit me like he's going after performance in the corporate environment. And so that's what he called it. He called the corporate athlete. And it made people think differently. Like, okay, instead of saying, hey, you need to eat better and feel better, whatever, but if you can perform better, his whole definition was performance in the corporate environment.
Well, it's almost like the hierarchy. Some people think the hierarchy of an athlete is maybe at the tip top. And so if your kind of baseline is a lot lower, you can kind of just get by. And I think that's why we both like the term athlete, because you're actually trying to be, at the end of the day, your best, whether it's in a sport or just the ability to perform if you choose to.
Well, and I think the other thing I heard you say in one of the podcasts is that you're comparing yourself to yourself.
You should.
Yeah, it's not always competing against everybody else, but can you be a little bit better or try to be a little bit better? And so to me, that's my thing is like, okay, I want to be a little bit better. And I want to be better mentally, and I want to be better physically. So,
yeah, Tom Brady was on a podcast this week, and some of the stuff I didn't love. He's a very intense, unique, 0.0001% of people. Like, there's a lot of things that I don't think are sustainable for the average person. But what he said was Carr, his coach, Tom would go in there and he's like, I'm going to transfer. I'm not playing. I can go to Cal and start. And he said, Brady, all you need to worry about is yourself. And he said it changed his whole mindset. He worked with a sports psychologist, and every single day, all Tom Brady tried to do is he got 2 snaps at Michigan, is to make those 2 snaps as best as he possibly could. So he's more enthused. He did more preparation.
Sure.
And so I think that's a good thing when you're thinking about aging as an athlete is don't look across the court or at the gym or whoever you're comparing and saying, oh man, that person can still jump and touch the rim, or that person can play and run a 4:30 mile or whatever. You got to go inward and say, what preparation have you done, and what's your limitations and what's your actual capabilities? that's a better way to do it. And that's how I think you can really age as an athlete, because I think what happens is two things. You compare yourself and say, that person does it, but I can't, and you quit. Or you say, I used to be able to do it, but I can't, so I don't want to do it anymore. And those are two things we see a lot. You see it in professional sports. The minute they're done with professional sports, they're done doing anything physical. We know many people that are professional athletes that
Yeah, they pack it in.
pack it in. And then you see the athlete, the average Joe, the intramural person that wants to do these things, play golf, downhill ski, say, well, I used to be able to do the double black diamonds and I can't anymore, so I might as well not do it. That's what we're talking about today, is how do we continue, no matter where you're at in the age, in a way that's very structured in the sense of how do I prepare and how do I continue just to get better, even though I don't have as much time. It's not my livelihood. And, as a college athlete, and sometimes I use that word with caution because I understand I was a golfer, but it's the same thing with golf. You don't play as much, you don't practice as much, you can't. But if you do certain things, it doesn't really have to decline, and you can still enjoy it at the same level.
Well, I think the other thing too, when you think of golf, if you go back in the days of, many, many years ago, the Miller Barbers of the world, these guys were great golfers. And maybe they were good athletes in other areas. But I think if you looked at golf, for example, now, all these golfers are into speed and strength and, mobility, flexibility, balance. It's a different world. So are the golfers of today more athletic than the golfers of in the past? Of course. I was watching Billie Jean King playing Bobby Riggs the other night, and I was looking at like the women's U.S. Open in tennis today. It's all there's so much
specimens.
more. There's so much more athletic today because again they understand that. But as people age, it's interesting. I had a couple in here the other day, and they're in their early 60s, and I'm getting them. I think they're getting excited about their physicality, and they weren't. They were like, I just want to get in better shape. But I was challenging them. Can you hang from the bar? So I said, can you hang from the bar for, 30 seconds unsupported? No, I can't do that. Oh, well, that's what we're going to strive for. Well, then they did it, and they're like, you should see the big smiles on their face. Or back in the day, I used to ask some of the seniors, what sports do you want to play? And then we would train to play that sport. So again, I think that's where the refreshing piece of all this as we age is having that self-awareness, one, but having that curiosity and that playfulness. And I think that's when you think about play and as kids, I think that's what you see a lot of athletes today is like, if you play multiple sports, you get pretty good at a lot of different things. Now, are you the master of any? But I think that's what happens as what I see in my world is people start not participating anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They used to water ski. They don't anymore. They used to downhill ski. They don't anymore. Or whatever they used to do, they don't. Why can't you still do it? And then you're training to do that. Maybe not the same exact level, but...
So I think we're talking two things. Number one, my body doesn't allow me to do what I want to do. Or I've allowed myself to just get into a routine where I don't give myself enough time to play. It's not a priority. It's not my white space. It's not a habit. And once you get out of that, I had a intramural basketball. I think I was probably 30, and I assembled this team. 3 Michigan State national championship players from the 2000 team. David Thomas, Dwan Wiley, Andre Hudson, and this other guy named Rudy, who was 6'9", 280 pounds. I mean, we were stacked. Long story short, we went 0-3. I couldn't get all of them to show up at once. So at the first game we had 4-on-5, and it doesn't matter who you have, but we slowly assembled. And one of the things I saw is they love to continue to compete, but their body doesn't necessarily allow them to compete how they envision they can. And it's like you have a choice. Do you compete at a level that you don't really care for? As a golfer, I don't really want to play the forward tees in an 8-hour scramble without much on the line. It doesn't do anything for me. So there's a competition, there's a level of performance that I do expect in some things, and that's what I saw with them. And then on the other side, a couple of them know I got to do a couple things here so my body actually can keep up with where I want. So some of it's choice, some of it is aging and understanding, okay, I'm not going to be a professional athlete anymore, and figuring out a way that kind of fills all your buckets of satisfaction as you continue to age. And so for me, it's golf, but I still want to run. So if I can't run, that bothers me. So today I'm going to go train with a coach to help me with this calf issue that keeps coming up when I try to run at a level that I want to. Can I walk? Can I jog? Sure, I can do that all day. Can I bike? But I want to run.
Yeah, and it's like for me, I have a chronic hamstring issue. So I could just say, hey, listen, I just can't do that anymore.
Put you in a cart?
I could just not play paddleball anymore. But that's not a choice. I'm going to continue to try to play. And so then I'm going to work at it. And like people say to me all the time, when you go see Jill in physical therapy, or, I get a massage a couple times a month, or, I'm doing specific stretches and strength training and stuff for that. It's interesting the comments people say to me sometimes, like, why don't you just not play anymore? Like, that's not an option, because I love to play. I loved playing this. I still can play it. I still can play it at a pretty high level.
Well, let's talk right there. Why is it not an option for you? Because it's an option for some people.
Well, it's not an option for me because I love playing it, and I still believe I can play it.
But what does play do for you?
It does everything. It helps me. It's a mental thing. My time disappears. I like competition, and so I get excited about it.
So fulfilled, joy.
Yeah, it's joyful.
Presentness.
Mm-hmm. We were skiing last year in Snowmass, Colorado. We go out every year, similar, Matt Kahn and Walt Holleran, which he's a heart surgeon in South Bend, and then my good close friend John O'Leary. And so we went out to Snowmass last year, and we had beautiful weather. We had all sorts of different issues to get there, but once we got there, the World Cup or the X Games just left, so there was nobody there. And so I'm at the bottom. I still remember this. I'm at the bottom of one of these runs at Snowmass, and snow's incredible. And I look up and I see John and Walt coming down. And they're skiing like they're frickin' 25. They're crushing it. They're into it, and they're, the weather's perfect. Everything, the snow is about, shin deep, and I'm walking, and they come down and they stop, and they were, they probably skied about 1,000 vertical or something just to get down. It was a long way. And I said to them, I got to tell you guys, and I'm not blowing smoke here, you guys are skiing like you're 25 years old. Well, a big part of that is they were so enthusiastic mentally, and you could hear them. You could hear them laughing coming all the way down. Now, they weren't laughing, but I could know that inside they were laughing.
Yeah, they were
joyful, they were excited,
and that's kind of what we see missing sometimes.
Yes.
Is like that. So when you think of people that lose joy, many things can happen, but they lose the ability for what they used to be able to do or think they could do.
And like when you go into the gym sometimes, it could be, I'm going through the motions or whatever, but I think sometimes when you can get people to play and then you create the physicality, like you were talking about your basketball guys, if they still probably love to play, but they're not doing the work to keep themselves
right. That's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, they're keeping themselves to play like they can. Now, do they have to be at the same level and work out the same? Absolutely not. But there needs to be some type of balance, because if you looked at the human body, how we age, it's a slow drip. It's a slow decline. Lung function first, mobility, all that stuff. It's a slow drip from age basically 20 to 100. Now, we're all aging,
unless you pack it in.
Unless you pack it in.
And then it goes quick.
It goes super quick. And usually around 40 or 50. And we always talk about the worst, the most detrimental age for most people is the decade between 30 and 40.
All right. So I'm in that age. So when we think about if someone's listening or they have kids or grandkids in this age, one of the things that really gets me passionate to try to continue to inspire is, let's just say you didn't play a professional sport or college sport, but you did intramurals and you're active through college or whatever, through high school. You're an athlete in high school, and then you hit college and kind of slows down. But then you hit your first job. Let's just say that's 24 to 30. And you slowly stop playing. You stop playing, you stop participating. Some people do. I know people that love playing volleyball and softball and things that keep them going. Great. But you stop playing, and you may still exercise or stay fit. When you stop playing, you stop to have that internal drive that, well, I got to do a couple things to keep playing. I got to get on the bike, or I have to run my certain amount of miles, or do some stretches, or work on my. And like you said, that's what I'm seeing. I'm 37, and many of my friends are done playing. Now they might play golf. That's a sport that you can kind of do at any level. But I see less people playing basketball. I see less people playing softball, if you like baseball or softball. Tennis. I'm the youngest person usually on the pickleball court. So there is that gap happening right now in our society between, I would say, 25 and 40, where people just don't play. Why? You were at that age at some point, and I remember you played a lot of things at that age. Today in 2023, why is this place so absent?
Because it's easy not to.
And what are they replacing it with?
They're replacing it with their phones, and they're all electronics and technology. Versus before, we're gonna have fun. We have to, we're gonna have to.
You gotta go find it.
You gotta go find it. You gotta set up a. I remember growing up in our neighborhood, we had 16 boys, all within a year apart, and so. But I was the ringleader, and I remember some of these guys today will still say to me, I probably wouldn't have done all this stuff, but you're always calling, hey, we got a football, we're playing baseball, we're doing whatever, basketball, whatever it might be.
Chris is at the house again.
Yeah, he's bugging the crap out of me. But I think people start to replace it with other things, and the more sedentary you become, And the next thing you know, you're kind of thinking like, okay, I can't climb that mountain anymore, and so I just wish not to. And if you looked at our society today, 85% of our population does not move intentionally in the United States. If you're getting out to play pickleball and you love pickleball, and as you age or whatever, and you're seeing, the best pickleball players in the world, they're young, because now they're realizing, oh, this is an interesting, fun game. But I think that's what I've seen over the years, that, like I get together with some of my guys that I played football with in high school, and a lot of them don't do anything except golf. That's all they do. They don't think about anything else.
Yeah, and then you think of the other side, my wife and mom, and some people weren't athletes, and some people don't like sport, but they don't move because there's less of the opportunity to move. I was speaking for, I spoke at all these schools over the last couple months because they all do their meetings in a short period. But the superintendent was talking about how her family came in town, and she was trying to get them all to play badminton, and nobody knew how to play badminton. And so I was laughing because when I was a freshman in high school, I had to take a badminton class. And I love badminton's one of the greatest things. Now you have to set it up, and if it's windy, it's all that kind of stuff, but this is what I think is going to be missed, this missed window of opportunity, because we're playing less. It's easier to be entertained with other. The way I used to be entertained was you're going to go play a sport at some point in the day.
Yeah, we're going to play horseshoes, badminton. I remember we had Bob Cornwell, one of the greatest, he was a guy I trained for many years, and I loved this guy, and he was this amazing piano teacher. And the guys had this formal training, and I learned so much from this guy and so many different things. But we had him over for dinner, him and his wife, and then we had Carrie and Kevin Hugh came over, and we have a ping pong table in the basement, and they come downstairs, and we're playing ping pong, and Bob's sitting over on the side, and Bob never played ping pong in his life. He never did any kind of sports per se. Now, he liked to be in the gym, but he didn't really play any sports. And he came up for dinner, and he goes, I've never seen so much misspent youth.
He is joking.
And he was like, how can you guys be this good in ping pong? And you don't know how to play any musical instrument. You don't have, but that wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
It was like, ping pong, tennis, doesn't matter what it was a game, it's fun. And I think when you think about what's going on in our world today, especially from a mental health, you start creating more physical play activities, which you can call that athletes, because again, I think people get excited when they feel like they're improving, whatever it is. I could call that an athlete. But that mental health stuff starts disappearing because anxiety and stuff, time disappears when people play. And when you hear this with it, especially older adults, there's laughter, there's joy, there's things that they don't experience during their day. And I think that's what we're finding with, when you think about athletes and as we age. Again, it's the awareness, but at the same time, we don't need to pack it in.
All right, so people's joints break down and they get injuries and put on weight and don't have the flexibility, range of motion, all those types of things. All right, let's give the listeners a couple things that you like to do to prepare to continue to be an athlete as you age, no matter what the age is.
Well, number one, the foundational pillar is I'm going to really pay attention to my sleep.
Yeah.
And the amount of rest I get. And so that's really important because when you think of hormones and how the body repairs mentally, physically, we need to make sure that.
So if my knees are bothering me every time I play basketball or anytime I'm going to do something let's start there versus saying, oh, it must be time for a replacement. There's many things that could be happening.
I ran into a guy yesterday and I said, hey, how's your golf game? And he goes, I don't play golf anymore because my back's a mess. Okay. That's it. Boom. It's done.
So, but sleep's a mess because his back's a mess. Back's a mess because he's not sleeping.
Right. So again, I didn't even go, okay, I'm not. But if that was a person, I would step back and say, hey, tell me about the rest, sleep. And then from there, we're going to look at really go and dive into nutrition. Are you hydrated? Are you taking omega-3 fats? What's your diet look like? Because that's the repair mechanism. I mean, how do you build a amazing building? You have to have the right raw materials. So then you look at that and what are they eating? And again, when you think about athletes today, I mean, every professional sport, they're really dialed into.
Well, yeah, I mean, Tom Brady talks about when he was 35, he started to really tap in nutritionally.
Yeah, it's huge.
And he thought he could play at that moment. He was feeling so much better. And most people at 35 as quarterback start to go the other. He said, I can play 10 more years. Serena Williams tapped into nutrition to gain a couple of extra years. Djokovic, tennis. I mean, it goes on and on.
I mean, to me, it's still today, it's still infancy of what people know about nutrition at the professional ranks. And so we've heard that. I mean, I worked with professional athletes. They don't really know anything about it. So I think that's the new frontier, in my opinion, is really understanding the power of nutrition, how it repairs the body.
So yeah, setting a new standard.
Yes.
So if the standard was when Grandpa was an athlete, which when Grandpa would talk about being an athlete, he's talking about when he's 21.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the last time he played organized sports.
Yeah, your grandfather was a good athlete, but again, he probably didn't do anything physically after mid-30s except golf.
And if that's the case, that standard that keeps being taught is like at 30s, you don't play anything anymore. Now, in today's age, there are people that you get the CrossFit and the Tough Mudder and these, I saw this woman, she was 85 doing some box jumping. Like, we're starting to see that it's possible. But now the baseline is going to change once we tap in nutritionally.
Yeah, and if you looked at Djokovic, I mean, what is he, 36, won the U.S. Open? He's playing,
what's his name?
Medvedev, but again, he's seeing that because as professional men and women tennis players, they shouldn't be playing at a high level after 30 in the past. I was listening to ESPN coming in here today, and they were talking about this one offensive lineman that he's kind of aging because he's 31. I'm like, what? So I think you're exactly right.
Because that's the baseline. We look at data. Here's the averages.
But I think Brady showed that, and you see Djokovic, and you're going to see this in every sport that you could play at a really high level if you take care of your body and your
your
the
asset
stuff that comes with it. So again, nutrition is really. I still think it's an infancy,
to manage inflammation. Inflammation is really what's
understand the power of hormones and how they work, and that's why we need to make sure we're getting enough sleep. Why omega-3 fats, omega-6 fats are really critical, because like when people do pumpkin seeds and like Brazil nuts and the cod liver oil, those are things that are really going to be the raw materials for your hormones. And then from there, I really want to surround myself with a team. I get a massage a couple times a month. I take Epsom salt baths, weekly, 2 to 3 times a week. Epsom salts are high in magnesium, helps my body recover. And then from there, maybe you have a trainer, and you have a chiropractor you see,
or a coach, or
a coach, yes,
or maybe you want to do a triathlon,
Yeah,
or you want to
yeah.
compete at something, the
And
Gus Macker.
Yeah, you sign up for something, you train for something, whether
Yeah.
it's a hike in the Grand Canyon or, a Tough Mudder or whatever it might be, Spartan Race but then from there really comes back to, and this is what I wrote in the Rest, Eat, Move book, is things I never used to do as restorative movements. I work on my ankle flexibility. I work on my knee flexibility. It's all these restorative movements that I never ever paid attention to before. Because when I was training with Walt back in the, here and there, he kind of created the self-awareness that I had these limiting components in my body. And if you have these limiting components, and one of them was my ankles. And so he showed me, and I kept using these excuses, and finally I started doing what he's telling me, and my flexibility of that drastically improved, and I share that with all my clients. And the same thing goes with, can you hang from a bar, or can you get on your knees? So when I look at some of the seniors I work with, the first thing I do is I say, hey, we're going to get this pad here, and I want you to get on your knees. And you should see the apprehensive looks that I get. Like, you want me to get on my knees? Yeah, I want to see you get on your hands and knees, and I want you to just be on your knees in a basically a seated position on your knees. And it's shocking that many of them are like, I can't do that. Well, do you want to do that? So those are things I think.
Let me point out something there, because I think that's solid. So some people are listening and are like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I care to be an athlete. I think that's honestly what some people are thinking.
Sure.
You do these things because one of your drivers is you want to continue to be an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
But also the rest of your life improves. You sleep better. You can do certain things. You don't complain about pain. So I think sometimes, as we're talking about athlete, even if you don't want to be an athlete, you got to think of yourself as, how can you continue to perform and function and be the best version of yourself, whether or not you like golf or tennis or pickleball or any of those. You still want to wake up each day, put your feet on the floor, and say, wow, I feel pretty good.
And I think that's what you said 100 times. I've heard you say this, but the bottom line in all this, it makes me feel good. And so I get up in the morning, I don't ache. Some days are better than others, but I think that's what people, and then I think people over time, they get numb to how they feel.
Sure.
And so when you think of the athlete piece is, yeah, you can go beat yourself up, but what I find is, as long as I play and recover, wow, I mean, like today, I'm getting out of the shower and I'm walking out after playing paddleball, and I'm like, wow, I feel pretty good right now.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple things. You got the Whoop and the Oura Ring and these things that track, and you now can compare and say, man, I thought I felt pretty good, but the stats are telling me I'm like way below average. I think that can help with self-awareness, because it is a blessing and a curse. We only can compare ourselves to ourselves,
Yeah.
if you think about it. And so if you get used to yourself, you might think, well, this must be how good it can be. In many cases.
But I think your wearables are training wheels. I really am not a big fan, except after you get past the first awareness.
That's a good thing. Yeah, it's a training wheel.
It's a training wheel. So
it's bumpers.
When you can teach people, like, I don't need to tell my, how'd you sleep last night? Well, my Whoop said this and that, and now it's kind of stressful. Versus reality is, were you dreaming? Okay, when did you go to bed? That's training wheels.
Well, because if you have less self-awareness, because you now have this thing doing it, at some point there is a give and take.
Yeah. But
so now you don't have any body awareness.
Training wheels, you got to pull them off sometime. So to me, I think the wearables are a good thing at the beginning, but to me, there's nothing that creates more awareness than is you listening to your body
and asking good questions.
Yes, and so that's part of being an athlete. You're more aware of your of your body.
So as we wrap up, I think this is a really fascinating topic, and we might go more specific down the road of, okay, how do you protect your joints and the exercise? This was kind of vague to a couple of things to inspire everyone to continue to try to be an athlete in their own way,
In their own way.
to continue to perform. We talked about sleep, nutrition, having a team, whether you get massages or doing the Epsom salts or have a chiropractor or whoever. And
Physical
then
therapist.
or trainer, a coach. And then restorative movements, using movement to restore the body. Can you get on your knees? Do you have the ankle flexibility? Can you hang? These are some things that are preparation to be an athlete. Before I kind of wrap up with my last thoughts, any last pieces for everybody out there to say how they can continue to just age well as an athlete?
One of the things I see, and again, it's interesting, the conversations recently, like there's many people that we play paddle ball with they do the wheatgrass, the cod liver oil, and some of the younger players are coming in and like, hey, what's that do? They're very curious because they see some of these older. I was talking to Steggs the other day, and Steggs says to me, and Matt Steggs had played at Michigan State, and he played professional basketball, and the guy's just a freak of nature, but he says to me at 60 he wants to still dunk. Well, that hits me right. And again, he's a big guy. He's 6'7", but he's motivated to dunk the basketball when he's 60. So that hit me like that's a driver.
Everybody has
for
a
him.
Thing.
That's a thing. Everybody has a thing. So,
You got to find it.
Yeah, and so for like you probably want to shoot your age, sooner than later. You don't have to wait till you're 90 to shoot 90, right? So I think whoever you are, find activities, try new activities, play more, but don't give up the play, because I think the play sometimes people are like, I've never been an athlete. I mean, Holly or Mom will say they've never been, but that they find love in some of these things they can do. Like when Mom went water skiing this summer, or, she's been snow skiing with me last couple years. And she's a great snow skier, and she's a great water skier. But again, just pushing her into that environment.
Yeah, you gotta push yourself. You gotta sometimes get nudged.
Really, she gets excited about that. So I think that's where let's get excited a little bit more about some of these things.
Yeah, she water skied at 64.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think that's the spot on. I think everybody has their thing. I see the pain is like I see so many people packing it in way too early. And then I see what the human body is potentially designed to do if you want to. And sometimes you have to step back and say, okay, I got a blank canvas. Don't care how much I beat up my body or where I'm at or what good I've done. What do I want to do? Reverse engineer. Because I think the key with this conversation, and you can learn from Tom Brady, the guy wants to be the best Tom Brady in all aspects of his life as long as possible. Sometimes a little extreme, but I think we got to keep playing. And so if you're listening to this and you say, yeah, I don't play like I used to. I just got back from Petoskey and I was working with law enforcement. They don't play. They're stressed. It's a high-demand job, on call. All they're looking for is a release at the end of the day. Could be having a cocktail or just kind of doing nothing. But they all know that they should play. And so the thing that I'm going to leave you with today is don't stop playing. Just change the preparation. Continue to try to prepare like you want to play. Because you're going to find, if you do that, you're going to find things that actually do give you joy, that do make you feel fulfilled. And if you have the preparation, you can pick up right where you want to pick up.
I'll just mention one last thing here. I think people get excited about their life when they see growth. Whether it's, I'm just getting a little bit better, or I'm trying to get a little bit better. And so I think that's what I see more and more. It gets exciting for people that they have something to look forward to, and they see that growth, and they see that change, and there's nothing that's better for the heart and the soul than to, find activities you love to do and play.
Yeah, play is a big deal. All right, we'll see you again next time. Any questions, info@ontargetliving.com. Have a great week.